here. I'm here.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, we'll start the webinar in 1 minute. The webinar will start in 1 minute. The audio is open.
Okay, all right. We'll go ahead and start with our meeting. Good evening, everybody.
Hey, Mike, just a minute here.
I'd like to call to order the City Commission meeting dated Wednesday, September 16th. This is a hybrid meeting where Commissioner Williams and myself are here presently at the Full City Hall. And the other commissioners are online streaming live via Zoom. As I call this meeting to order, Commissioner Williams will give an invitation, and I will do the pledge of allegiance. Since we have an audience here, I will ask that you rise for the invitation and also stand again for the pledge of allegiance. Call to order the City Commission meeting.
Let us pray. Eternal God, Father, we come now in the name of your Son Jesus. Now we say thank you for this day, this beautiful city in which we live. As we come now, God, to do the business of this city, we ask that you give us wisdom, that you give us knowledge, understanding, Father God, that we do things to your will and to your glory. Bless those that have come, those that are online virtually. Father, we just ask that you continue to bless this city as you've always done. We love you, we give you great thanks, and we give you great praise. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. Join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, for doing that. Also, I'd like to say the City Commission is very sad that all this rain and our city has flooded. There's areas that normally who didn't flood have flooded, and we're having some issues. Rest assured, our Public Works Department is doing all they can to alleviate that flood. Realizing that water came down pretty fast. I think we got over 10 inches between yesterday and last night, and it's still raining, so the water got to go somewhere. But we're doing all we can to help alleviate flooding in the city of Brunswick. So I offer my apologies for anyone who's been inconvenienced, and know that we're trying to do our best we can to get that water up out here and let it, I guess, recede back into where it's going, where it needs to go. I also realize that the city of Brunswick has hills and valleys, I guess, well, slopes, I guess, and water going to run to the lowest point. If you're living in, if you have a lowest point, water going to run there and sit there for a while. But as we said, our drainage system, we're trying to work on that to make sure we get it all out. So bear with us. Our first item on our agenda is for public comments. It's for a monument located at Hanover Square. Tonight's public comment period will be limited to 1 hour with 3 to 5 minutes allocated for each individual speaker. Comments are to be limited to relevant information regarding your position and should avoid being repetitious. If your group has a spokesperson, please allow the individual to present your group's position in the time that's allotted. Individuals attending via Zoom should sign to Zoom under their name and make a request to comment via chat by stating, "I would like to comment," along with providing their name and their address. The individual then will be given access to address the commission. Your cooperation in this process will be greatly appreciated. A decision regarding the monument will not be made at tonight's meeting. Please understand that. A town hall meeting is scheduled for next Wednesday, September 23rd, for further public comment, public input, with the decision being made soon thereafter. Appreciate everybody coming out to have a comment and signed up for the comment period. I will try to get everybody in as much as I possibly can. But we realize that this is something that's coming for our city, and you have a right to address your commission during this comment period. So, moving right along, Ms. City Clerk, are you
The first person on my list is Senator-elect Sheila McNeil.
Would it be all right if we could take this off?
Yes, you can. To speak, yes, please.
Thank you. Senator, as she said, I am Sheila McNeil. I live at 3264 Lakeside Drive in Brunswick. I've lived in Brunswick all of my life, as did my parents, and my grandmother was only here 3/4 of her life, my great-grandmother a quarter, but we do love the city. The monument in Hanover Square is the only monument dedicated to the Civil War and erected in Glynn County, Georgia. Confederate monuments are usually community memorials, and that is certainly the case with our monument that was erected by the Ladies Memorial Association of Brunswick, Georgia, in Hanover Park. It was dedicated on April 26, 1902, as a tribute of love to the heroes of the Confederacy in 1861 to 1865. It took these women 15 years, starting in 1887, to collect enough money to pay for this monument. Erecting a monument was a way for the community to memorialize its losses right here in our coastal community. Hundreds of people wearing black mourning attire came on foot and in horseback buggies to watch the unveiling of the monument. After the Civil War, the Union and Confederate burials were not treated the same. Since the Confederacy lost the war, there were thousands that never received a proper burial. So the Ladies Memorial Association wanted memorials for the men who sacrificed their lives and never returned home. These monuments do not promote the Confederacy, but the women, the men and boys who had daddies, mothers, brothers and sisters, just like the soldiers from the North did. These monuments are very innocent. They are not wicked. They only honor the fallen soldiers. After many years, the 20-foot-tall monument made of sandstone with a statue of a lone Confederate soldier on top made of white Italian marble was cleaned by the Old Town District residents. The north-facing statue with its downward gaze appears to be in dignified reflection, but not defeated or disgraced. This common soldier's booted foot is placed forward into the future. 94 years after the Hanover Monument was erected, local citizens were still passionate about the monument, and in 1996, the Thomas Marsh Foreman Camp of Brunswick Sons of Confederacy Veterans headed a campaign to collect donations for a restoration that was to be completed in December 1996. The monument was rededicated on April 26 for the parade from Oak Grove Cemetery to Hanover Square. The Brunswick Civic Orchestra provided music in solemn form. The Thomas Marsh Foreman Camp and the Lanier Glen chapter of Brunswick United Daughters of the Confederacy were in charge of the program. Healthy societies do not destroy their own history. Tearing down history does not help others rise. If you don't know what happened in the past, then you can't learn from it. If you can't learn from it, you're doomed to repeat it. We can debate that war 55 years ago until the cows come home for what it would accomplish to tear down this monument, which has stood for 118 years in this same location with beautiful surroundings, maintained by signature squares. Nothing, absolutely nothing. The Veterans Memorial Coalition is a nonprofit organization that supports candidates and legislators who stand on defense of veterans' issues and veterans' monuments of both past and present. I have committed to them to do just that. Mayor and city commissioners, I beg you not to tear down this memorial of our Confederate soldiers who have been declared United States military veterans by the United States government. Thank you. How close was I, sir?
You got a minute and 45 seconds left. You did pretty good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Deb Kilgore.
Please state your name and your address, sir, please.
Jeff Kilgore, 3210 Lakeside Drive in Brunswick. I kind of feel like I'm in a prison with that announcement. Jeff Kilgore, I feel like I need to call myself. You know how it is, really.
No, I do not. No, I do not.
This is one of the volumes by Shelby Foote. There have been some people who've questioned the source of the information that I have publicized, and I would suggest that Mr. Foote is far more recognized and superior in his historical credentials than any local imposter. I've got two objectives tonight. I'm going to do the best I can, Mayor, and I trust that you will give me a warning if I get too far down the line. First objective is to demonstrate that the common perception of the history of the South is totally wrong. Underlying the objectives are two main concepts. They're as follows. The war between the states was not a rebellion by the South, but rather a legal secession, and therefore the Southerners were not traitors. The war between the states was not fought over slavery. And to be clear, I want to say right away that slavery is a horrific institution. It's abhorrent. There's nothing that I will say tonight that defends slavery in any way. Nor do I deny that slavery was an issue in the war between the states, which I call banking, which you'll understand here in a minute. Slavery is a blight on humanity and stain on this country, and can never be covered up or adequately cured, although I would note that we're the only country that's outlawed slavery. No American who believes in the Declaration of Independence can ever doubt the right of secession. Our country was born of secession from the British Empire. Secession is defined by Webster as the act of separating from a nation or state and becoming independent. The preamble of the Declaration of Independence reads as follows. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate legal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. More specifically, Thomas Jefferson in the Declaration said that governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed, and that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute a new government. James Madison in Federalist 43, when in 1787, 88, 89, the Constitution was being written and ratified, said the principle of reciprocity seems to require that its obligation on the other states should be reduced to the same standard. A compact between independent sovereigns founded on ordinary acts of legislative authority can pretend to no higher validity than a league of treaty between the states.
1 minute, sir.
We're within 4 minutes.
Yes.
Let me shortcut this. The secession of 1860 was the fourth secession. First was the Virginia secession from the Articles of Confederation. Second was 1803. Massachusetts led secession because of the Louisiana Purchase, and then subsequently in what's known as the nullification crisis, South Carolina attempted to secede in 1832. So 1860 was not the first time. Most historians agree that fewer than 10% of the people in the South actually owned slaves. If the North wanted to end slavery, all they had to do was pass a constitutional amendment. Indeed, what they passed was the Corbin Amendment 2 days before Abraham Lincoln was inaugurated. In his inauguration speech, Lincoln declared he was supporting slavery, that he would not abolish slavery. Therefore, I would suggest to you that the monument is not a symbol of white supremacy. It is not a memorial to slavery. It is a memorial to freedom, capitalism, smaller government, and sovereignty. And that's all the South wanted. And the 10% of people that own slaves obviously are a problem. I'm not denying that, and I don't think anybody does that supports the monument. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
For your accommodation.
Thank you.
Down is Trenwick.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I am Meredith Trawick and I live at 305 John Shaw Road in St. Simons. I am going to give you 6 major reasons why the Hanover Square Monument should not and must not be removed. Number 1, this is the only monument dedicated to the Civil War erected in Glenn County, Georgia. Number 2, text inscribed on the monument states, in honor of the Confederate soldiers who died 1861 to 1865. According to the United States government, these Confederate soldiers are United States military veterans, making this monument a war memorial to United States veterans. The following United States laws will back this up. A. Number 38 U.S. Code 2306, formerly Public Law 810, dated 26th of February 1929. B. Public Law 85-425, Section 410, dated 23rd of May 1958. C. Public Law 85811, dated 28 August 1958. In these 3 laws, Confederate soldiers were afforded the same rights as Union soldiers and U.S. veterans. In referring to the Veterans Memorial Preservation Act, President Trump signed an executive order on June the 26, 2020, which instituted a 10-year sentence for anyone who destroys, damages, vandalizes, or desecrates a monument, memorial, or statue within the United States. I know that you, Mayor Harvey, are a military veteran, and there might be others on the City Commission. I feel sure that none of you would want Brunswick to be known as a city that removed a United States Veterans Memorial. So please don't take this monument down. Number 3, Georgia Code Title 50, State Government 53-1, concerning monuments was signed into law by Governor Brian Kemp on the 26th of April 2019. The Hanover Square Monument does not meet the qualifications in the Georgia state law for removal. A. No one has suggested that the monument needs to be removed, quote, for the construction, expansion, or alteration of edifices, buildings, roads, streets, highways, or other transportation construction projects, end of quote. If the monument met any of these qualifications and were to be removed, it would have to be, quote, relocated to a site of similar prominence, honor, visibility, and access within the same county or municipality in which the monument was originally located. A monument shall not be relocated to a museum, cemetery, or mausoleum unless it was originally placed as such location. But our monument does not meet these qualifications. B. The Hanover Square Monument is in the most perfect location and has been for 118 years. It is not in front of any government buildings, it's not in the middle of the downtown of Brunswick, it's not in the shopping district, and most people do not even know where it is located. C. The monument is not a safety hazard. It's not in danger of falling or causing any physical harm to anyone or to any personal or private property. 4. Historic Preservation Board. The City of Brunswick, dating back to 1738, is laid out in traditional British fashion with a grid-like street pattern interspersed with green parks and pleasant squares. Hanover Squares is one of 14 city squares that are public property owned by the city and its citizens. These squares are protected by the fact that they are located in the National Register of the Historic District of Brunswick, and therefore they are under the guidelines of the Historic Preservation Board. 5. The monument is owned by the city and its citizens. In 1902, when the monument was erected by the Ladies Memorial Association, common sense tells us that nothing could have been erected on city-owned property such as Hanover Park without the permission of the governing body, which was the City of We know that the city accepted this monument as a gift or it never would have been erected. Another way the city showed acceptance of the monument was by paying to prepare the solid mound on which the monument was placed. This was a huge undertaking, and it's why the monument is still standing staunchly today after 118 years honoring the Confederate dead. 6, the Brunswick City Charter. Absent any action by the City Commission to specifically amend the city charter, the parks and squares are protected by Section 114, Parks and Squares. The municipal charter of the City of Brunswick said, "Cities shall not have the power or authority to convey, lease, sell, or eliminate any of the parks or squares of said city for any use, public or private. And said parks and squares shall forever exist and be used for the benefit of the people for park purposes." I believe we are all law-abiding citizens, and our monument laws give us no reason to remove the Hanover Square monument. Also, there is no reason to put this issue to a citizen's vote. The law is what it is. A vote cannot change the law.
Time is up, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Linda Chansey.
You say your name and your address when you come forward, please. Repeat again.
Hello, everyone.
You're speaking to us. Yes, ma'am.
Ellie Chansey.
I got it, yes.
Nice. Ellie Chansey, 9 St. Andrews Court, Suite 103, Brunswick, Georgia. Okay. So, I think first we should pursue the lawlessness leading to the desecration and deliberation of an American veterans consecrated memorial on the weekend of June 20th. The Sons of Confederate Veterans are offering a $3,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the perpetrators and enablers. I think we should immediately secure a contract with a proper restorative monument company, restore the bays, repair the damages, provide surveillance cameras. This is city property. The city property needs to be protected. As the only known veteran, I was a sergeant in the United States Marine Corps for 4 years, and on this advisory board, it is grievous for me to see the denigration and desecration of this veterans memorial. Most military service members in the enlisted ranks historically have come from poor families across the nation. That hasn't changed in 200 years. Confederate soldiers at the rank of private received a sum of $33 for 3 months' service during the Civil War years. These men served because they were called upon to stop the war of northern aggression and not to perpetuate slavery. They were poor Sand River tributary dirt farmers, tradesmen, and woodsmen. They did not possess the means to support the institution of slavery. This statue represents an unnamed soldier, not a wealthy plantation owner. Honorific entitlement presently exists with lineal veterans' descendants paying their respects at this American Veterans Memorial, this monument to Confederate soldiers. Our memorial is dedicated and consecrated. Acknowledging the loss of 4 dead must not ever be denied. The monument honored by living persons adhere to a Christian doctrine, avowing the continued present necessity to maintain as an honorific memorial taught of the Christian doctrine of honor thy father and thy mother. As a related descendant of the Confederate veterans, Asa, Samuel, and Huey Chansey, Hiram and Isham Bennett, and a lineal descendant of Joseph Davis, Thomas Woods, James Dixon, and William Dixon, all members were Company K 54th Regiment that mustered out on behalf of the South. This statue stands on sacred ground. A separate memorial, in addition to the plaque on St. Simon's Island, I'm sorry, I got it wrong. I think we should have on-premise contextualization that would center around a new statue or a series of sculptures or plaques reflecting African American lives with reference of the existing Hanover Square statue directed towards our newly appointed, designed, and installed cultural assets. I think money is spent on building monuments to our citizens here that need representation would be a better use of funds than to deal with some sort of litigation that might come. I think a separate memorial could be put up on St. Simon's for Neptune Small, as well as over on Jekyll Island for the Wanderer. And a particular interest of mine would be to see something done at Evo Landing for the Igbo people. I think cultural heritage tourism is not an exclusive club. We're better endowed than most cities to be able to afford to support tourism here, and I think that this is a Smithsonian waymarker. It's part of our cultural heritage, and we need to protect it. Last but not leastly, I would just like to say that the Veterans Memorial stands in perpetual memory to the common man, the uncommon soldier of a fading war, not so far in the distant past. We need to maintain, retain, and build on our cultural heritage. We have no reason to take down an American Veterans Memorial. If you take this one down, who's to say that next year someone comes along and they're offended by all the new Veterans Memorials that we have at the new Memorial Park, and they want those removed as well. It has to stop somewhere. It needs to stop here. We don't need to pass the buck. We need to do what we need to do now. We need to get new monuments up, and let's build our cultural heritage and history here. We need to add. We don't need to desecrate, denigrate, and remove. There's enough here for all of us. There are 20 parks in Brown County. This is the only one that's dedicated to contemplative, reflective recognition of our ancestors that were so uncommonly valiant in their defense of the South. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brad Brown.
Next one, Neil.
Benny Williams.
Is his name and address, sir, then?
Good afternoon, Mayor. And attendees. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Benny Williams. I live in Darien, Georgia, but I'm very active in the Glenn County, Golden Isles area. I am past manager of American Legion Post 9.
Mr. Williams,
Yes,
you're
sir.
speaking to us.
All right.
The audience will hear you.
I'm past commander of American Legion Post 9. I am commander of the American Legion in the 8th District, Southeast Georgia. I am chairman of the Veterans Council of the Golden Isles. I am charter secretary for Coastal Georgia Honor Flight. I am commander of the Thomas Marsh Foreman Camp 485, Sons of Confederate Veterans, and I'm a member of the Sons of the American Revolution. I am a retired United States Air Force Master Sergeant. So my comments today are going to be directly related to veterans. The statue monument that we are discussing today is a veteran. As the previous person spoke about, it has been classified as such by federal law, signed into law by presidents of the United States. I was not poor when I was in the Air I was poor when I was in the Air Force. The only thing I owned was a 52 Ford that I rebuilt from the junkyard. This soldier standing down here was poor. How can I say he was poor? He's not on a horse. Only the rich that could afford the horses and educations and slaves were allowed to be officers. This individual is not on a horse, therefore he was an enlisted man. He could not afford slaves. What he had was probably a small farm that he, his wife, and his children farmed. Or he was a laborer. He served his country like I served my country. He did not serve in ideology. He served to protect his family, his friends, and what few meager assets he had. But not all the slave owners in the South were Southerners. Good example, right here in our area, Darien, Georgia, Butler Island Plantation was owned by Pierce Butler, a lawyer from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. 900 slaves. He had to sell 450 of them to pay off his debts. So both of these memorials are dedicated to veterans that served their country. My question to you is this. 100 years from now, when the nation has moved on, and we have different values and different standards, just like we have now with him, will they come back and will they tear down the World War II memorial, the Vietnam Wall that I served under, Korean memorial, or will they tear down the Martin Luther King memorial, or who knows what else? Memorials are put in place to remain in place to remind us of our history, the pattern that created our nation. So if we remove this monument, it's the same thing as removing the Vietnam Memorial, it will be a slap in my face for my service to this country. Slap, disrespect. And I call upon everybody not to do that to our veterans. They go out, they stand in the line of fire, they protect us, and I obviously we need to respect our veterans. But I call upon you to think about the cost to remove that monument. What is it going to cost the city of Brunswick? How much is it going to cost if legal actions occur? Okay. If this goes to legal actions, thank you, sir, how much would it cost to replace it? Okay? Could that money not be better spent with the city of Brunswick as a convention center? And last but not least, I again call upon the mayor and the council to remember that talk and the removal of this monument will be in violation of state law and federal law. And I ask y'all to really think about that before you make a decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Samantha Gilder.
Please state your name and your address and again.
Before I begin, I would like to give each of you these petitions as well as little comments. I emailed the folks yesterday with one where I created a petition. Here are the comments and the signs of the petition calling for the removal and or to add contextual context or historical context. My name is Samantha Giller, and I live at 1312 Newcastle Street. Good evening, Mayor and Commission. My name is Samantha Giller, and for immediate clarity, so that there is no question, yes, I am a resident, a citizen, a taxpayer of Boone County, and I currently reside within city limits. I have followed along from the beginning of the formation of the Statute Advisory Committee and was an active participant in the initial email campaign calling for the statute's removal, which was the catalyst for forming the committee to begin with. I thought, okay, they're listening when I heard the committee was being formed. Weeks went by before the committee members were announced, and I saw a few familiar names and thought, okay, they're still listening. I watched the first meeting take place, and from there forward, it became apparent that the commission was going to be hands-off with intervening in this matter. There was abusive language from the beginning within the committee, primarily being used by Linda Chansey, and I think collectively the constituents who were listening online were immediately on alert of how the future committee meetings would go. I watched on each week, read through the extensive Google Drive documents, and watched the videos so kindly and carefully put together by Dr. Chris Wilhelm. A new layer of discovery was peeled back each week as we all learned together of the statute's history, stemming back to fraudulent transactions that led to its purchase, the nature of which the statute came back, primarily the fact that the statute does not represent a single specific being, but rather it was a pick-and-choose model, and the lost cause myth in which the history of the Confederacy is being retold. Once the information was made available, it became even more clear. The statute is without any personal value in our town. We've seen all around and neighboring towns and states statues being removed. Why would we be any different? The murder of Ahmaud Arbery has opened our eyes to things we cannot unsee, and with how our country and county has handled and mishandled the treatment of Black and brown men and women. Right now, more than ever, if our community is telling us that this statute is hurtful, harmful and asking for its removal, and still we choose to ignore them, we are perpetuating the very thing that led us here to begin with. Change does not start in the comfort zone, and I'm well aware of the difficulties surrounding these topics. But if we allow a statue celebrating the enslavement and ownership of our Black ancestors, we are allowing white supremacy yet another tainted victory. If we allow the monument to stay unchanged, we are telling our community, we see your tears, we hear your pain, we understand our wrongs, but we're still going to continue them. I've written several, at least 5 emails to each of you over the last few months, and never once have I received a reply. Turning a blind eye will not make this issue go away, and as you can see tonight, we will not be silent. I have previously emailed you the petition signatures calling for the removal or at best the addition of context to the monument. As of this morning, the petition has reached over 1,000 signatures. I also sent a geographic breakdown of those signatures yesterday, which you will see nearly 45% signed by Glenn County or neighboring residents. I have also previously sent you all emails regarding the necessary and immediate removal of the chances from the committee. For starters, and unbeknownst to me at the time of the email, an open records request to the city revealed that the tally was incorrect from the beginning, therefore Linda Chancey should have never been on the committee. Her role in this committee has compromised the integrity from the beginning. I send you direct quotes from Linda Chancey's Facebook. Racist, anti-Semitic, and hateful rhetoric being publicly shared on her social media. And still no response. I know you received well over 400 emails stating the same. Still nothing. I implore you all to do the right thing here. Why now, some ask? Because when you know better, you must do better. It should not have taken an outcry from the world, and it should not have taken a viral video of Black murder on the internet, but it did. And while we cannot go back and change our actions in the past, we can start today, right now, by making the right decision. To remove the statue and send a clear message, there is no place for hate in our town. As a white woman in the world, I stand before you all and say, we should be more comfortable with ruffling a few white feathers if it will allow our most oppressed communities of color to feel seen and heard. Once the public comment period is over, the ball will remain in the court, and I'll end with this question. Will you let your moral compass guide you and do the right thing?
Thank you.
Emily Liebert.
Please take the name and address.
Emily Leopard, and I'm the assistant of Freedom Trade. I'm speaking on behalf of a concerned citizen. I was born and raised in Brunswick. And I would like to discuss my stance and what I would like to see. The monument does not have, number one, does not have a name attached to it. There's nothing to show that it was for which race it was for or whether there's white supremacy or black supremacy. There's nothing there to substantiate that. It does not have a name attached to it. When the monument was put up by Marie McIntosh Madden, and we have to agree, I think we all agree, the war was the most horrific war in history. According to Dr. Madden, he was sickened by the carnage of the war, that he no longer practiced medicine when he came back. Okay. I would also like to state that we're going to all disagree that we are all free to think and believe what we want to believe. It's America. It's America. During that time, there were blacks that went to war. Soldiers took their best men with them, whether on the battlefield or in camps, they were there. Okay. I hear arguments that they were all traitors. No, not all were served. Not all who served were volunteers. There were quite a few that were drafted. You go whether you want to or not. You go whether you like it, whether you believe in the cause, whether anything. You go because you are required. So there were some that were drafted. There are two ways to become a slave: submission and conquest. Tribes conquered other tribes, including women and children. We're not just talking about black slaves. We're talking about women, children, and other races. In biblical times, Jews were slaves. And in current day history, we still have slavery. Do I know what slavery feels like? Yes. 5 years. 5 years. But I was required to speak only when told. I wasn't allowed to go out in public without someone with me. I was beaten. I know what it feels like every night for 5 years. Yeah. 5 years. This statute, I would like to also point out that what my recommendation is that the statute remain where it is, and that we erect other statues in the community that represent noble individuals from our community only, and place them. We have a rich culture here, and I would like to see statues of people that represent the advancement of civil rights right here in Brunswick, such as Reverend Tillman, Walter McNeely and his wife, Rizzy, and the founders of Southern Park. In addition, Sidney Lanier, and of course Jim Ray. We have history. My vision is we're a tourist area. My vision is that we are a tourist area. When people travel to this area, they don't just come to go to the beaches and a hotel. They travel to go to see the sights and the history of the area. They bring their children. They want to teach them the culture and the richness of culture in person. My vision is that I would like to see monuments and statues erected in this area. We could also have trolleys or bicycles. My history is that I rode bicycles and I picnicked in that park out there for 20 years. We rode bicycles throughout this whole area. We stopped at what we could stop at to see what was there, which was the cemetery and this statue.
Say when your time is up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
See Henley Flowers.
Please state your name and your address, please, and you can begin.
My name is Sept Flowers. My address is 3035 Charing Cross, Brunswick, Georgia. I am here as a descendant of 3 great-great-grandmothers, Clara, Suzanne, and Peggy Hickenbottom, who lived during the Civil War and the cruelty of enslavement and Jim Crow right here in Glynn County. I brought a picture of my great-grandmother, Peggy Hickenbottom Tyson, who was not just an abstract slave that we often refer to as slaves, but a real person who lived during that period. She was born in 1853. Just imagine how my great-grandmother Peggy must have felt when a Confederate monument was erected in 1902, honoring soldiers who fought for the cause. The cause to keep her and her family suffering as enslaved human property. The cause to have her mother raped and forced to breed many children by slaveholders. And this came from an elderly cousin who passed this information down. To sell her and others like animals, Pierce Butler, who was mentioned, traumatizing and destroying families. the cause to maintain the Confederacy belief in African slavery, and that the Negro is not equal to the white man. Alexander Stephens, Confederate Vice President. The Confederate monument also has the Confederate flag on it. The flag's history has been associated with preserving slavery. Some of them went on to form the Ku Klux Klan. Domestic terrorism and white supremacy to this present day. An example, Dylan Roof, who killed 9 African Americans in South Charleston, South Carolina, was a proud Confederate flag carrier and holder. You can see him on social media. The Confederate monument, together with the Confederate flag, represents a Southern heritage that is insulting, not one of pride for my great-grandmothers or their descendants. If the Confederate monument is Brunswick's city government, if the Confederate monument, the symbol of Brunswick city government, wants to endorse and honor, doesn't want to endorse this in public space, given its symbol of oppression and racism of people like my great-grandmothers. My great-grandmothers lived lives did not matter to the Confederate soldier, just like Ahmaud Arbery's life did not matter to the white men who thought they had a right to hunt him down and kill him. Please vote to remove the Confederate monument from beautiful downtown Brunswick and place it in Oak Grove Cemetery for those who want it, and not impose it on the rest of it, us, who view it as a symbol of past and present institutionalized racism. It does not unite us, it divides us. And for those who claim, my ancestors bravely, this is the claim, my ancestors bravely served in the Civil War. He didn't own slaves, he was just defending his home. Removing his symbol disrespects him and the ancestors of the community. This issue isn't about the personal motivation of one soldier. It's clear that the government, as a government, the Confederacy endorsed slavery and white supremacy. It can be found in the Confederate Constitution, in its statements of the Confederate leadership. And it can be found in the secession documents of the states. This symbol represents the Confederate government which endorsed these beliefs. Thank you.
Roxanne George.
Please state your name and your address and you may begin.
My name is Roxanne George. My address is 105 Baumgartner Circle, Brunswick, Georgia, 31520. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I am grateful to be able to speak to you this evening as both a private citizen and as a member of the Board of Directors for the Robert S. Abbott Race Unity Institute. It struck me as I was thinking about the statue in this meeting that all of these meetings always start with these words. We pledge our allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If these are truly our values, we cannot continue to let stand in our public space a statue to honor those, rich or poor, who waged war and sought to violently divide the United States to ensure that African Americans would be denied liberty and justice for all time. Some have spoken of racial harmony in this community. Certainly a community that is doing the hard work of rooting out inequality and systemic racism should celebrate that, but that is not yet our community. Just outside the city, Ahmaud Arbery was killed for the crime of jogging while black. One of his killers worked in Brunswick's law enforcement system for years, and it took months and public outrage from all over the world before his killers were arrested. This is not a community that is living in racial harmony. In the city of Brunswick, far too many black families live in extreme poverty. Far too many black residents are jailed for small offenses. Far too many black children are still force-fed a history that includes them only as a footnote because the important characters are always white European Americans. This is not racial harmony. A statue may seem like a small thing, but it is large in its symbolism and its impacts. Statues tell important stories about who has power and who does not, and about the values that a community holds. This statue stands as a reminder that the Confederacy prevailed in its power to ruin black lives and continues to do so because we have not told the truth of our history. We should not mistake exhaustion, resignation, or restraint for harmony, nor should we continue to take our neighbors' patience for granted. If we are to become the beloved community that so many of us truly yearn to be, we must listen to the pain of those whom racism harms the most. And we must move forward as if we care, because we do. We are looking to you to set the example, to do the right thing, to make the brave move, take the worthwhile risk to put this community on the path to truth and reconciliation. I know you are all equal to the task, and I urge you to begin by removing the statue to Oak Grove Cemetery. Thank you.
Thank you.
Elijah Henderson.
Please state your name and your address, sir, and you may begin.
Elijah Henderson, 3rd Karen Way, Brunswick, Georgia. I'm a returned citizen of Brunswick, wartime veteran. Been back home in Brunswick for 20 years. I'm also a co-founder of the Better Win. I'm not going to appeal to my veteran status. I'm not going to appeal to my African status. I'm not going to appeal to the fact that I am a descendant of slaves on both sides of my lineage. I'm going to appeal to your sense of history. I'm not going to talk about the Civil War. We're going to talk about the Revolution. We're going to talk about Lord Dunmore and his Ethiopian regiment. We're going to talk about General Henry Clinton and the Black Pioneers, specifically the Black Pioneers who were escaped slaves from Georgia and the regiment out of Savannah who met him in Charleston, South Carolina to sack Charleston. Now, if our history is correct, we would understand that if Lord Dunmore and General Clinton had won, it would have impacted the liberty of every European citizen here on this great Turtle Island that we live on. However, it would have also liberated every African on this Turtle Island that we live on. So, the consolidation of minority power that you possess, I'm going to appeal to the numbers that you already have. You don't have to bow to white supremacy. You don't have to listen to revisionist history. You have the numbers. Make the call. Vote to remove the money.
All right.
Thank you.
Rabbi Rachel Brinkman.
Please state your name and your address, and you may begin.
My name is Rachel Bregman. I live at 1318 Sycamore Avenue. Can you hear me in the back? I don't care if the monument stays up or comes down. I have lived with that monument my whole life. What difference does it make if it comes down, if the system, if our lives do not change? This is what a friend said to me when I asked what they thought about this monument. Personally, like many others, I've been having a lot of conversations with my African American friends and colleagues. I'm trying to be a good ally. Here's some of what else I've heard. I'm angry that white people had to raise this issue to get attention. Because when black people complain about it, it's radical, it's fussing, it's rioting. But when you show up, it's important. So I stand before you today, contrite and with great humility. I'm ashamed that as a community we needed Ahmaud Arbery, whose name has been mentioned over and over tonight, to be hunted down and killed in our streets, for all of us to be here. We all know what that man said as he stood over Mr. Arbery's lifeless body. We all know what he called him. To do that means that Mr. Arbery was seen as less than human. We've allowed black people in our community to be seen as less than human long enough. We've allowed all of these people, our friends, our neighbors, to be invisible. To move the monument says we are all brothers. Your pain is my pain. My humanity is incomplete until your humanity is full. We here privilege the needs of the living over the placement of a memorial to the dead. Here's some more words of wisdom from a dear African American friend. We have the opportunity, one more time, out of the ashes, to paint the image of God within us. Now I shared not my words, but words of others, because as another friend told me, you need to use your voice, because as a white person, people will hear you in a way that they cannot hear me when I use mine. So this is what I think. We don't have a monument problem. We have a race problem. We have an equity problem, and we have a love problem. We have a community problem. And we have an opportunity here, out of the ashes, to paint the image of God within each and every one of us. So let's move the monument from Hanover Square. Let's put up a contextualizing plaque. Let's add other pieces of history and art as have been suggested here this evening. I understand that some people believe that only black people want it gone. Well, I want it gone. I want it gone for my friends and my colleagues, my neighbors, black, white, brown, rainbow colored. I want it gone for my daughter. I want it gone for the next generation. Because for so many, it's a totem to injustice, and in this community, we will not let that stand. And if we really believe that, which I do, let us let the monument removal or relocation be the beginning, not the end. The clergy here in Glynn County are following the leadership of the Glynn County schools, and we're working with their racial equity facilitator, Dr. Deidre Dawkins. We're working in partnership, hopefully with you, the city, the county, the chamber, Community First, Abbott Institute, Coastal Action Authority, and many, many more, to learn a different way forward as a whole county. All of us, every voice. So please, move the monument, add the plaque, add the art, and please also insist on bringing the skills and tools necessary to our beautiful city to make change. Let this moment be an opportunity to listen, transform, to heal, and to grow. Thank you.
Say it again.
William Phillips.
Sir, please state your name, your address, and you may begin.
My name is Bill Phillips. My address is 8 Hyde Avenue on Jekyll Island, Georgia. Got that?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
You may begin.
First of all, I'm a son of the South. I was born in Birmingham, Alabama in 1938, 82 years ago. I lived in Birmingham until I was 21 years old. Then I moved way north to Atlanta, Georgia. And there I lived the rest of my adult life until I moved to Jekyll Island in 1997. One of the first people I met in 97 on Jekyll Island was Mayor, who was then working for the Jekyll Island Authority. I'm also a citizen of Glenn County, and I'm not one of the islanders who don't come to Brunswick, Georgia. I'm one of the islanders who love Brunswick, Georgia. I'm also a man of the church. I grew up in the Methodist Church. I went to a Methodist college in Birmingham. I went to a Methodist theology school in Atlanta. And I served 10 years here as the pastor of the of the Unitarian Universalist of Coastal Georgia on Gloucester Street. Now, since we're running short of time, I'm going to make this a little short of what I was going to say, because I have some special things I want to say. We're not discussing what happened in the Civil War. I believe the Civil War is over. What we're talking about is what kind of image we're going to have in our city, in our county. This monument, this statue of an unknown Confederate soldier, is simply a symbol. The issue is, what does it symbolize? Now, the Civil War was not just about slavery, but let us not mince words. It was also thought about slavery. If it wasn't, why did Abraham Lincoln free the slaves toward the end of the war? Why did the South fight that? Why do people still fight that? It's because of prejudice. Let's not mince words today, because it's very important what you all will decide. I hope you have the courage of your heart and the strength of your conviction. This needs to happen now. Who do you think is the most well-known person from Glenn County, Georgia, right now, all over the world? I know who it is. It's Ahmaud Arbery. That's who people get an image of who we are. Murdering black people unnecessarily, needlessly. And we don't need to have any monument of any kind that is a symbol that reminds us daily. Every time I go home, I go down Newcastle Street. Except I started about 5 years ago going a different route. We need to go a different route. It's time. My issue today is not about the Civil War, but this is a symbol. This statue is a symbol of slavery, of lynchings, of murders, of taking people away from their family and selling them to another state. That's what the Confederate soldiers did. The issue about who could own a slave wasn't the only issue. The issue was who believed in slavery. Of course, there were poor people who did not own slaves in the South, but they did support it. Okay, my last question. If not now, when? I've been fighting to take down symbols of slavery all my adult life. If we don't do this now, when are we going to do it? If not now, when? If not us, if not you, if not you, then who's going to do it? time. It's time we stand up. We all know what this is really about. We all know what should be done. Let us do the right thing, for God's sake. And let us do the smart thing. Maybe the world will see us differently.
Please state your name, sir, and address and name again.
Yes, sir. Yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Billy Mitchell. Live at 1917 Union Street, aka the Best Street, Brunswick, Georgia, 31520. I just have three things I want to talk about today. One is that I love America. Two is that I love Americans. And three is that I love Brunswick. I don't have roots as deep as some people who have talked. I'm only a third-generation American, but I love America. And the monument, as I literally physically see it, is a man up on a pedestal that I physically need to look up to who fought against America. As someone who loves America, I believe that statue needs to go. Second, I just love Americans. I love Scottish Americans, Asian Americans, Latinx Americans, and of course, I have to say it, I love Black Americans. I have Black American friends who are more family than friends to me. And those family, they have descendants that were here way before mine. They have descendants who were enslaved, who were owned here in Glynn County, who had unbelievable violence done to them, and yet they still love America. They're still here loving Americans. And that statue, that man in Hanover Square, up on a pedestal, who I physically have to look up to, fought a war that killed Americans, to keep Black Americans enslaved, to keep Black Americans owned. And so that statue just needs to go. And finally, I just love Brunswick. I'm from Chicago. I'm a third-generation Chicagoan. The first time I set foot in Brunswick, I knew this is where I'm going to make a life. This is where I want to live. And the people I've met here, I love the people I've met here. They greet you with smiles like a sunrise. And it's every type of person just getting together, mingling down at Tipsy's, fishing off the pier at the marshes of Glynn, taking your shoes off at Jekyll Island, and we all just spend time together. Black people, white people, brown people, sixth generation new Americans, we all get together, and that statue does not communicate what the people of Brunswick are all about. The people of Brunswick communicated what we were about when we marched arm in arm during a pandemic to honor Ahmaud Arbery and make change in our community. And now those people, we, your people, are asking you to honor us and make a change that needs to be done. So in closing, I'm clearly not a fancy real estate agent, so I don't know obscure zoning facts. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't quote unjust laws. I'm not even a historian or an amateur historian, so I don't know, I can't twist facts like a salted pretzel at Coast Fest. You know, all I can say is that I'm a citizen of Brunswick. I feel blessed to be here, and that statue needs to go. That statue needs to go. That statue needs to go. Thank you.
Say it again, Naomi.
Catherine Shalero.
Please state your name and your address and you may begin.
Yes, sir. My name is Catherine Shalero, and my address is 11 Ian Court, Brunswick, Georgia. Good evening, and I just want to thank you so much for opening the floor to us and hearing our comments. We must remove the Confederate monument in Hanover Square. It's a relic from a past built on the idea that economic prosperity justified the Confederacy's cause, slavery. But the lost cause of the Confederacy is a grossly twisted version of history based in the belief in the superiority of the white race. And this pseudo-sham version of history is exactly why that monument stands and what it stands for. Now, I've heard the argument that some posit heritage, not hate, that the monument must stand as a reminder of our history. To those people, I say, look around. Let this entire country be a reminder of our history, a country and a history that was built on the backs and the graves of Black, Indigenous, and other peoples of color. I'm sure you don't need a history lesson, and I'm not going to stand in front of you and pretend to understand Black pain in America, but I do want to remind you what the Lost Cause stood for. To the Confederate ancestors, the Lost Cause justified violence, cruelty, and murder. It justified ripping people from their homes and families, forcing them onto overcrowded ships, chained together into spaces inches high, selling them like goods, and forcing them to work for their masters. They were beaten, even killed if they didn't perform as they were expected to, and sometimes even if they did. This relic in Hanover Square is just one of so many such pockmarks that scar the physical landscape of the American South. If other cities can tear down their Confederate monuments, why not us? I'd even argue that the need for Brunswick to remove its Confederate monument is greater. Why? The murder of Ahmaud Arbery here broke us. We didn't think it could happen here, but it did, and now that is what we are known for. How can we heal if the very physical landscape of the community itself supports racism, white supremacy, the twisted glorification of this lost cause, the Confederacy, and everything it entails? Decades and even generations of enslavement, beatings, lynchings, and murders. Commissioners, please stand on the right side of history today. Remove the Confederate monument. It's already been there too long. Thank you so much.
Reverend John Perry.
So please state your name and your address and begin.
My name is John Perry. My address is 3309 Altown Avenue. First of all, I want to say thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, for allowing me this opportunity to share with you all. This year has been a year of great division throughout our country. And yet, as a community, we have been able to maintain a sense of peace. While we're not a perfect community, in the midst of all of the things that have taken place, we have been a peaceful community. And yet, these opposing views have the ability to kindle division within our peaceful community. With that said, in an effort to maintain the unity of our community, I'm asking this governing body of leaders to take responsibility for making a decision regarding the fate of this Confederate statue. I fully understand allowing the residents to attempt to come to common ground. However, this hasn't been able to be achieved. And since, as a community, we're unable to come to common consensus, it's important that this body of leaders take the responsibility of making a decision itself. I'm a Batman fan. In one of the episodes of Batman is not guilty of the crimes that have been committed. There are certain crimes that have been committed by Two-Face. But Batman says, I'm willing to be the villain so that it brings peace to the city. And I would suggest to you as the governing body of our community, sometimes leadership means that you have to be the villain so that there's peace in the city. With that said, I've listened to the different views of both sides. Up until this point, I've chosen to be silent. There are those that have communicated that it's so important that we preserve history. But there's a difference between preserving history and celebrating history. When we talk about the Confederate flag, another point that I want you all to take into consideration is that private interest on public property should not be allowed if it does not lead to the unification of our community by large. Last thing that I will say for your consideration, historically we know that America has had the gift of penning the divine words. But oftentimes in history, it was proven that our character was far less than the divine words that were penned in our Constitution. But God, by His grace, allowed us time to grow, to evolve. And so while there are those that try to hold us bound to history, history is supposed to serve as something that promotes our evolution. And I want to suggest that we're now in a moment of evolution, and that if this governing board will take responsibility and make the hard decision of removing the statue, that it will help in the evolution of our city and preserve the advancement of unity. Thank you.
Laura Carena.
Hello, Mayor.
Hello, please state your name again. You enjoy it.
My name is Laura Cron. I live at 322 South Harbor Oaks Drive, St. Simons Island. As you know, I served on the advisory committee to this commission on the topic of the Confederate monument. It's good to see you guys in person. And I appreciate the opportunity to address you again. I have two topics I'd like to address tonight: the composition of the advisory committee itself, and then the monument. Firstly, I have deep concerns about the makeup of the committee and the process that was used to put it together. I refrain from voicing these concerns during the course of our work, but I will voice them now. Ms. Linda Chansey is well known in Brunswick for her extreme racist, anti-Semitic, and eugenicist views, which she publicly states on social media. I believe there's a place for everyone in our community, but anyone with Ms. Chansey's views absolutely does not belong on a committee attempting to reach consensus on the local impact and legacy of the Civil War, slavery, and Jim Crow in the South. These are topics that are already sensitive and controversial without adding in these extreme and dehumanizing views in the mix. Mayor, commissioners, not only did you appoint her to this committee when she didn't receive enough votes to be appointed to the committee, according to a public records request that I saw, you received hundreds of emails from your constituents over the course of the last month calling to your attention her extreme views, and you failed to act. This inaction and this silence speaks volumes to your community. It says that these views deserve a seat at the table. And as a citizen of Glenn County, and as someone who values and respects everyone regardless of their race or religion, I want to absolutely refute that. And I'm confident that my fellow citizens of Glenn County refute that too. We denounce eugenics, we denounce anti-Semitism, we denounce racism, and we denounce white supremacy. Those views have no home here, period. I respectfully ask that you respond to your constituents who have voiced concerns over Ms. Chansey's appointment and presence on the committee, and give them the answers they deserve. On the topic of the monument itself, I want to start by saying that I'm a history lover personally. I have a deep appreciation for the value of preserving historic buildings and structures. And that's why I feel that the monument should be moved to a location that itself provides better historical context and does not confer any additional meaning to the monument, such as a cemetery or a museum. Public spaces in our community confer significance, endorsement, and validation to any structure that they house. When a monument is erected and preserved in a public place, it says something about that community's values and beliefs. This is my concern, that you as the commissioners will hear the evidence that this monument is historically accurate, characterizing the Confederate cause as a just cause, that it was erected by a small minority of wealthy white citizens of Glenn County decades after the Civil War ended, without the consultation and against the wishes of the local Civil War veterans, and that it embodies a worldview that wasn't shared by the majority of Glenn County citizens back in 1902, and certainly isn't shared by us now. My concern is that you will hear all this and will choose to take only the most minimal of actions. That would be a Band-Aid on a wound that has festered in this community just like it has in communities across this country, and stood in the way of true equality and unity for centuries. A wound that was ripped open by the brutal lynching of Ahmaud Arbery in our backyard, and which our citizens are telling us, telling you today, needs to be addressed still. My Christian faith compels me to pursue shalom, a Hebrew word meaning peace, harmony, and wholeness, and which I understand to be a characterization of God's vision for his kingdom here on earth. I hope this commission doesn't miss the historic opportunity to take a meaningful step towards healing and shalom by removing this monument from a public place of honor. You don't need to put it on the ballot. You didn't even really need the advisory committee that I served on. What you need to do is listen to your community and take action. You've received hundreds of signatures and comments from your constituents who have signed an online petition and are telling you here today that it has to go. I have faith that you'll make the right decision, even though it's a difficult one, and that moves us all together towards true unity, equality, and peace. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Kathy Brooks.
Please state your name and your address, please.
My name is Kathy Brooks, and my address is 25713 Highway 82, Waynesville, Georgia. First of all, I want to thank you, gentlemen, for creating this venue tonight for the community to come together to make our voices heard. I guess you could say that I'm a daughter of this city, and in some ways a granddaughter. My grandfather owned Sweat's Body Shop on Warwick Street, and my grandmother used to paint paintings of the marsh, the Golden Marsh. Both my parents were raised here, and both of them graduated from the academy in the late 50s. I don't know why when we stand up here we feel like we need to tell our pedigree. My husband and I moved here with our children in 1996. Three of the six of them live and work in this community today. So I too love Brunswick. Wherever I've lived, this has always felt like home. I'm grateful to be a part of this conversation today, and I'm kind of proud of us that we're having this discussion. I feel strongly about the monument because of this. I realize that at the time of the Confederate War, people believed and held beliefs about our independence and about our right to self-rule. And in that right to self-rule was included an undeniably understood right to own other human beings and force their will upon these men, women, and children. We believed in a right to buy and sell human beings, and that is something today we feel great shame over. In 2020, it is time for this to be marked on the ground, that we have evolved from that understanding of what it means to be a human and what it means to be a member of this city and this region. It's critical to me that this monument be changed. Why? Because we have changed. And it's critical to me that we take down the pedestal of the image of the soldier that fought for rights that included the right to own other human beings, to traffic human men, women, and children for profit. The blinders are off. What we believed in that day, we don't believe now. We know better, we must do better. I suggest that we remove the image of the soldier from the pedestal and perhaps give him back to the descendants of the Daughters of Revolution if they would prefer to keep it and put it in a private setting. But let's use the base of that monument or build another one, and let's tell the narrative of where we began as people in the South and mark the spot where this monument now stands. And let's tell the reasoning in the minds of people 1902 when it was erected, and then let's continue that narrative forward and explain where we are today. Let's include a public apology to the families that suffered unspeakable heartache, loss, and pain through the mechanism of slavery. We need to tell it loud and clear that we want it marked here in this space,
impressed on this ground in the words that as a community, we will not stand to have a belief system lifted up on a pedestal that allows for the right for any man to own another. That's my suggestion. Remove the pedestal, create a way to communicate that explains the story of what this community has come here today to discuss, and make it clear who we are now. Please, Commissioners, it's time to take this monument down. Thank you.
It seems like we're going over our time limit, but in the essence of people who come here, I will allow. Excuse me?
Belinda Robinson.
So please state your name and the address and the name.
Good evening. I'm doing a sound check. Can you hear me? Kurt? Yes. Okay. I'm Mayor. Good evening, everybody. My name is Melinda Roden, and I'm a citizen of Clinton County and a lifelong Southerner, born in Charlotte, North Carolina. Grew up in Richmond, Virginia, and have lived in Georgia for the last 35 years. So, some of you may know me from my day job, but I'm here tonight solely to speak for myself as a private citizen and as well as a board member of the Waterman's Abbott Race Unity Institute. And before I go on with my statement, I would like to echo what Laura and Samantha said about the committee and the structure of the committee, the way the committee was formed. The Abbott Institute has written letters to you expressing our concern about the committee and the people on the committee who have public views of white supremacy and eugenics. We would also like to position our complaint with the committee that was structured. So going on, I would like to say that a lot of talk about this is regarding history. The issue before us is history. Well, first of all, it's not possible to erase history by removing monuments. History already happened, and the Civil War is thoroughly documented. What is important is that we tell the truth about what happened in the past so that we can make well-informed decisions for the present. The monument of an unnamed Confederate soldier in Hanover Square does the opposite by perpetuating falsehoods and denying the facts and the legacy of what happened. So let's review historically on what the statue honors and why it is here. It does not honor any particular soldier or ancestor. It's a generic statue. Hundreds just like it were churned out and sold to small southern towns, just like ours, throughout the South in the early 20th century. And why was that? Most historians agree, and I can provide sources for those who don't believe me, that the statues were erected a full 35 years after the war ended to preserve the myth of the lost cause. This coincided with the emergence of Jim Crow laws, which denied basic rights and a voice to millions. Nevertheless, white Southerners at the time still felt compelled to remind the oppressed of their continued oppression and the supremacy of the white race by honoring the war they fought to preserve it. In other words, a war which was fought to preserve human slavery. But I'm not going to debate this anymore about my historians versus yours. I'll let history speak for itself. In 1861, at the Virginia Secession Convention, met to decide on how the South should move forward. Georgia was represented by Henry Louis Benning, who was given full authority to speak on behalf of our state. At that convention, on February 21st, 1861, Benning delivered an official proclamation on behalf of Georgia regarding the state's position on secession. Here is Georgia's reason for seceding in Benning's own words. Quote, "The reason may be summed up in one single proposition. It was a conviction, a deep conviction on the part of Georgia that a separation from the North was the only thing that could prevent the abolition of her slavery. That conviction, sir, was the main cause." End quote. was the preservation of slavery. Yes, states' rights were also an issue, a state's rights to own slaves, which were considered an indispensable economic engine.
1 minute, please.
As stated in all secession documents, the Confederacy and subsequent war was predicated on the South's outrage regarding the erosion or intrusion of their property rights, which were, as they stated, $3 billion of our property in the common territories of the Union. So let's be clear, that $3 billion was they were referring to were human beings. Let's also be clear that the statute we're discussing does not honor a specific soldier or ancestor. It honors the tragic and morally reprehensible cause to preserve human slavery. It is a rebuke to the majority of citizens of Brunswick today, almost 60%, whose ancestors were enslaved people under that system. And it is an insult to all citizens of Glenn County, black and white, who love this nation, the United States of America, and the dream promised by our founders that all men are created equal.
Your time's up.
Please remove the statue to Oakland Cemetery with other dead Confederates.
Please state it again, Naomi. Who?
Latanya Austin.
Okay, that's fine. Also, please state your name and your address, please, and you may begin.
Okay. My name is Latanya Austin, and my address is 104 Sugarhill Avenue, Brunswick, Georgia, 31525. What is this for? Dear Mayor and City Commissioners, we, the Board of the Robert S. Aberration Institute, which is dedicated to fostering racial understanding and harmony, are addressing you all tonight with this issue regarding the Confederate Memorial at Hanover Square in Brunswick. The Abbott Institute's membership is composed of over 200 diverse citizens in Glenn County. Oops. Over 200 diverse citizens in Glenn County from all walks of life, races, and religions. But we are united in the belief that an understanding between races and religions will guide us to move harmoniously and healthy in society. To that end, we ask the City Commission to consider the future well-being and peace and brotherhood of our community. The future of our community will be built from the premise of our children, which is dependent upon the example we set and the unity we embrace. It is for that reason, the future of our children, that we entreat the city to remove this statue to Oak Grove Cemetery, where it can be viewed by those who want to preserve it, but not forced upon those of us, the rest of the community, who see it as a harmful and hurtful and traumatic symbol of the past oppression and subjection. We do not see this issue as a split along the lines of race. More than half of our members of our Adoration of the Institute are white, and we are not outsiders. Our organization's name plays homage to an outstanding Glenn County citizen who lived here over 100 years ago. Our board is composed of mostly citizens who were born and raised here. We see this as a commitment to reconciliation, to healing, and to recognizing the pain these symbols cause to so many of our citizens. Despite the killing of Ahmaud Arbery, which resulted in international attention and condemnation, we gathered as a community to peacefully protest that racial injustice, black and white, young and old. We came together to speak out, to understand and to heal. And we implore you to continue that healing process. If we care about unifying all citizens of this community, the statue has no place in a public square. Our country and county have changed immensely since 1905, when it was erected. I may have that date wrong, but somewhere around that date. At that time, African American citizens here were subject to oppressive Jim Crow laws, which denied their rights as citizens and silenced their voices. The statute and its etched message are not representation of the hard-won progress our nation has made since then. The values we hold dear are the hopes and dreams for our community's future. Removing the statue to a cemetery, a place where all of us honor our deceased family members, is a perfect solution for those who want to remember their Confederate ancestors. We may never agree on the symbolism and the meaning of the statute, but we hope we can agree that healing, understanding, and love for our fellow citizens is worth a compromise to ensure the harmonious and inclusive future for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Atkins?
Latasha Delvin.
Hello, thank you for giving us all this opportunity just to speak to this today. I have been a resident of Lynn County for over 11 years now.
Can you please state your
Oh,
address?
I'm so sorry. Yes, I'm Natasha Jovin, and my address is 113 Glen Marsh Circle, Brunswick, Georgia 31525. I have been a resident of Lynn County for over 11 years now. For the first 7 to 8 years, I struggled with living here. The mindset often felt closed and not inclusive to me. However, I have fallen in love with this small coastal town. It is rich with nature, history, and community. But despite all of this, though, there is still so much work to be done in regards to justice. Whether it is environmental or racial, we have yet to arrive where everyone is treated with equality and has the same amount of equity. A big portion of this history is rooted in stories of oppression and systems of white supremacy. I want to be a town that owns up to our part of the problem and can then move forward in solutions. I want to be a voice among many in our county that stand against the racism and corruption that is happening. Doing what is right in regards to this Confederate monument is a great start to say to the people of Brunswick, our county, and the nation, that we will not stand by and celebrate history that fought to oppress our black and brown brothers and sisters. White supremacy created structural systems that continue to divide us and hurt so many still today. I listened and read the info that the committee shared, and I just don't understand what the benefit of keeping this monument would be. It was made in 1902, 37 years after the Civil War ended, and was a controversial then as it is now. The history seems to include possible fraud and mismanagement of money that would be illegal today. This alone, to me, makes it a monument that we should not be proud of. It seems to have divided the town then, and it is dividing our town now. Why on earth would we want to keep a structure that celebrates the so-called lost cause, when that very cause was full of greed, rape, exploitation, family separation, death, and the property and torture of fellow human beings? We are not a post-racial society. Ahmaud's murder in our town is proof of this. My daughter, who is a person of color, has already experienced this at the age of, she's just 5. This reality is heartbreakingly true, and it's all over our nation. It's seeped in our nation. I want Ahmaud's family to know we see their pain. I want my daughter to be proud of this town. I want to be proud to live in this town. I want us to do the right thing and take it down. You will not find a single monument to Hitler or Nazis in Germany, or monuments celebrating apartheid in South Africa, because these nations said no. They acknowledged the sins of their land and made it clear that those sins would never be celebrated. I beg you, as our leaders in this county, to make us proud and help us move towards a more just and equitable society. May we be an example for the world. We have got to start somewhere. Thank you for your time.
I would like to go on until
No, I'm fine with that.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you.
Is it okay to go home now?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right.
Take it home, just to the 7.
Yes, we end at 7. All right, go ahead on. Now, call the next person, please.
Casey Carter.
Next person, now.
Anita Collins.
Please state your name and your address, please.
Good evening, 1602 Tillman Avenue, Brunswick, Georgia, 31520, Anita Collins. And I really don't have anything to say. The reason that I don't have anything to say is because we've heard from so many members of this community who've shared their sentiments about the monument. And I feel confident that you will do what needs to be done because the voice of the people have spoken and spoken overwhelmingly. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mark Linton.
Next.
Dolores Polite.
Like, please state your name and your address and you may begin.
Thank you, Mayor Harley, commissioners, and tax holders. I stand here, Dolores Polite, from 2518 Elm Street, Brunswick, Georgia, 31520. I stand backwards in the gap of my ancestors, forward to speak to you all about the statue, the Confederate statue. I applaud any culture, whether it's African American, whether it's white, whether it's on the Gold Coast of Africa, or whether it's in the Isles of England. I will say this, that I think it should be removed and replaced at Oak Grove or even in a museum of sort, because everyone loves their culture, everyone loves their history. I'm a history buff myself. My ancestors told me from 1700 till today. We was with the British first, then we were with the Americans. And now I stand here today not accepting the Confederate statue because my ancestors did not have a voice. I am speaking for them. They can put it in Oak Grove or put it in a museum, but it needs to go in the future that we will stand in Glenn County to remove the statue.
Leon Anderson.
Please state your name and your address and you may begin.
My name is Leon Anderson. I live at 1108 Odyssey Lake Circle South. There was a lot that I was going to say, or I thought I was supposed to say, but I thank God for who He is and the fact that every person who came to stand before you and say that the statue should be removed said everything that I thought I was supposed to say. So God showed me, and this is what He's always guided me by, it's love. So in my time, I want to share this. 1 Corinthians 13, I'll start at verse 4. Love endures with patience and serenity. Love is kind and thoughtful, and is not jealous or envious. Love does not brag and is not proud or arrogant. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not provoked, nor overly sensitive and easily angry. It does not take into account a wrong endured. It does not rejoice at injustice, but rejoices with the truth. When right and truth prevail, love bears all things, regardless of what comes, believes all things, looking for the best in each one, hopes all things, remaining steadfast during difficult times, endures all things without weakening. Love never fails. It never fades nor ends. In everything that I do, I always say that we should always start with love. And that should be our driving force in everything that should be done. I'll be honest with you and I'll say this. I do not believe that today was ever necessary or needed. I believe that our leaders could have made a decision based on the voices of the people who asked for this to be done. Honestly. Today, we're able to come in front of you and you will see the colors, the ethnicities, the differences of all of us, because the emails didn't show that. I get it. You thought it was only black people. The letters didn't show you that. I get it. You thought it was just a few black disgruntled people. But today you see before you a plethora of ethnicities. Black, white, Christian, other religions. God is love, and we are His people. Regardless of what we look like or where we're from. I don't believe in race. I believe we have a race issue in this country. But I know that God created us all in His image, so every last person in here looks like God to me. So I say this, just in case you don't understand where I stand in reference to the statute. The statute must be removed, because it does not stand or represent love. It was not erected or brought forth in love. And if you look at the people who stood together today to tell you how we feel about the statute, this represents God and the inclusiveness of His agape love, which He shines upon all of us alike. But if you look at the resistance that we have seen, there is a group of people who look almost exactly alike. That's not what God wants. That's not love, if you think about it. The Word of God says to love thy neighbor as thyself. And I'll say this as I close. I'm proud to say I'm from Lincoln County. I'm proud to say I graduated from Brunswick High School in the year 2001. I'm proud to say that the people here are my brothers and my sisters. I'm proud to say that the anxiety that I felt for the last 3 months is a little lighter now. Because I thought, maybe it's only us. But I see now that we see each other. Because the emails didn't show me that it wasn't just black. I knew it was, but the emails didn't show me. I didn't know who all sent emails. I didn't know who all sent out information to you guys to say that the statute needs to go, or this person shouldn't be a part of this commission or committee. But now I see. And I pray that you're led by love. Because righteousness is what we're dealing with here. This is not about we want to get rid of history. The history books speak more about slavery, speak more about the Civil War than it does about our history. If anybody knows about history being stolen, I can raise my hand and say I do. I have no idea where I come from. That's due to the system that was created here. We'll never forget what happened. It's not possible. It's in the books. We get it. But just because it happened doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean that we have to continue to allow the celebration of something that was so divisive. I understand. The statute says Confederate States of America. On it does not say the United States. It wasn't made for unity. It was made for division. At the time it was made, our people were still being lynched. We're not those people anymore. We're united under God, indivisible. God bless you.
Take the past, learn from it, and move to a new future. hope and know this commission will do what's necessary on one side or the other. And we hope that at the end of that decision that we can all come together, united, and discuss what's going on, not just here in Brunswick, but around the United States, and figure out how we can bring about change together. How we can remove some of the stigmas that have been placed. How we can change some of the mindsets on both sides about how one may feel about the other. With that being said, thank you, Commission, thank you, Mayor Harvey, and we appreciate you so very much.
Thank you.
People that signed up.
Is anybody for
Zoom, there was one person, but she's no longer on there. I think she left.
Okay. Well, it seems like everyone who signed up. Do Matthew have anybody signed up? No?
Yes, I included his list with mine.
Oh, you did? Okay. All right. Well, that's...
Mayor, there's one person, Olivia Moore, just said she would like to speak.
Okay.
Major Post, if you would let her speak, please.
Hello?
No, you please state your name and then you may begin, and then the address and you may begin, please.
Hi, my name is Althea Moore, and I live at 1129 Linear Boulevard, Brunswick, Georgia, 01520. I don't have anything so eloquent to say as what many people have shared, but I just want to contribute my voice as someone who lives here, and my 2-year-old daughter was born here, she's going to grow up here, and I want her to grow up in a city that she can feel proud of. And the Confederate Monument is a symbol of what our city and our community chooses to celebrate and chooses to remember, not just to remember as history, but chooses to hold up and celebrate. And I do not want to be a part of a community that celebrates slavery. And that monument is a celebration of slavery. It's a monument to slavery, and it celebrates the so-called lost cause of slavery. And I think it's offensive to Black people in our community who have to see it and know that it's there. And it's offensive to me as a non-Black, as a white person, to have to see it and know that it's there and being celebrated in my community. I think it needs to be removed, give it to someone who wants to see it, and it should be replaced with a monument to slaves, to people human beings who were enslaved by white people's ancestors. We need to own that history, and we need to celebrate, frankly, we need to celebrate Black people in this community who have built this community. That's how I feel as a white person, and I hope that the City Commission and the Mayor will do the right thing and remove that offensive monument that celebrates slavery and replace it with a nice rose bush, or, whatever you want, or a monument to, the entire history that celebrates everyone in our community. So I think that's all I have to say, and I really thank you for your time, and appreciate what you're doing and listening to all of us.
Thank you.
Mayor Harvey, I have one more, Jan Horsham.
Okay, then we have time for one more.
Hi, you guys hear me?
Yes, please state your name and also your address, please.
Yes, my name is Jan Worsom. I live at 106 Gates Place on St. Simons. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the commission. I'm a retired Glenn County school teacher and longtime resident. This very week in 1963, small 4 small black girls died in the basement of their Birmingham church when it was firebombed. People my age remember. Today, racism still poisons America, including South Georgia. We know this firsthand, partly because of the recent murder of Ahmaud Arbery. We've celebrated the Confederacy for more than 150 years, sometimes by using statues such as the one in our square. It's time to remove and replace them with other monuments. I'd like to see representations of people of all colors and genders who have struggled for equal rights, treatment, and opportunity. Those are the ones who need to be remembered now. If we want a new day in America, we need to actively make that happen. Time is overdue. Public monuments that hurt and degrade people must come down. Thank you.
Okay, it seems that we are about 3 minutes before our ending of this public comment. I appreciate everyone who has stayed and who have listened and who have opened their minds, their hearts and their minds to listen to opposing views, to the decision that the city council have to make. It was also mentioned that we could have made a decision irrespective of the citizens. Yes, we could have. We could have done that. But always remember that you as citizens have a right to address your commission, address your government. You have a right to do that, and we will allow that. Irrespective of, we will make a decision. A decision will not be made tonight. And we appreciate everyone who have come out and presented their viewpoint on it. Some of the historians have given us history. We appreciate all the comments that have been made. We will have another town hall meeting next Wednesday, the 23rd, for the public comment, and after which we will get together, the commission, then we'll make a decision as to what we need to do with the statute. Understand that you all elected us to make decisions for the betterment of the whole community, for your viewpoint and also for the whole community, and that's something that we will do. We together will make that decision, not the mayor himself, not one commissioner, but the whole commission. We are elected by you to make a good decision, and we will stand with those decisions. So, again, thank you all for coming out for the public comment. If you would like to leave before we continue on, you can. If you'd like to stay, that would be great just as well. So I'll give you a couple minutes so you can gather your things if you'd like to leave.
Are you able to see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Rob Brown. I'm an engineer with Goodwin Wilson Cable, and it's my pleasure to be with you today and provide a project update for the first half of our Shoreline Protection Plan grant project that the City of Brunswick has been working on jointly with Jekyll Island Authority in Glynn County. As the first phase of this project, we are discussing the shoreline assessment and implementation resiliency plan that had been created. Before I get started, I just wanted to share with you why this plan and project are important. And that is that by having a plan that outlines potential projects and prioritization of those projects, it can then be used in support of grant applications. And right now, there's a lot of grant opportunities available, especially in the area of resiliency. So a grant application can carry a lot more weight when it references projects that are identified in the official plan. Before I get started, I just wanted to give a general brief introduction of myself, my firm, and our local experience. This is one of my first times presenting before you all commissioners. But I live in Glynn County, and I'm the Brunswick office manager of Goodman Haywood. GMC is a Southeast Regional Architecture and Engineering firm with about 450 employees. And GMC's done a lot of work for the county and Joint Water Sewer Commission, as well as for the city. Recently, we've assisted the city with technical support for the Stormwater Utility Program, National Floodplain Insurance Program's Community Rating System audit, its Stormwater Management Program, and specifically its Stormwater Permit with Georgia EPD, as well as a number of other projects. But we're very familiar and have done a lot of work with coastal resiliency along the Georgia coast. We've done a sea level rise study for the city of Savannah, for Chatham County, as well as a carrying capacity study for Tybee Island. I just want to acknowledge this 2-year project was funded for Coastal Incentive Grant from Georgia TNR Coastal Resources Division and from NOAA. Glynn County is the official grantee on the project, but City of Brunswick and Jekyll Island Authority are project partners. And staff from all 3 of these agencies served on a shoreline task force so that they could share information and formulate cohesive and linked efforts between all members in order to increase disaster resiliency countywide. The Water Sewer Commission and DNR Coastal Resources Division are other task force members who participate on a regular basis, and GMC was selected through an RFP process to be the consultant to guide the development of this plan. But we were setting a brief timeline to give you a little bit of perspective about how this grant and project came about. You're all very familiar with events in the fall of 2016 and 2017 with Hurricane Matthew and Irma impacting Glynn County. While we did not receive direct hit, we did experience damage to the shorelines associated with these storms. 2 of these pictures are within the city limits, showing those impacts. So shortly after Hurricane Irma, in the fall of 2017, the Coastal Incentive Grant period opened, and through this grant application period, the county, the city, and Jekyll Island worked together to formulate a grant application to develop a shoreline protection plan in order to protect these areas and develop plans to stabilize some of the shorelines before the next major storm. The grant was written in 2 phases. So the first was focused on shoreline assessment, and the second is going to be on sea level rise response. The focus of today's presentation and the first part of our work that we just recently completed is the shoreline assessment implementation resiliency and management. The key objectives in how we proceeded through with this project was first we added all applicable shoreline related data, and for purposes of this plan, shorelines relate to not just the beaches, but also marshes and rivers. That's how City of Brunswick is also incorporated into this project. We looked at all shorelines. And then we looked and evaluated areas where there was highest vulnerabilities, and then explored a number of different preventative measures and remediation solutions to protect these. The grant was awarded in fall 2018, and we've held 5 task force meetings during this first phase. We had hoped to get together with the City County Commissions and Jekyll Island Authority Board back in March 17th, but that event was canceled due to COVID, so we're presenting each commissions and boards separately as we're getting ready to close out the first phase of this project. The second phase is where we begin the data collection, and that will be ongoing until the spring. This just shows a summary of the task force meetings and topics covered. But I'm going to focus on just a few of those meetings. So first, after GMC was selected for our first task force meeting, we met to discuss project goals and coordination on the project. And then really in the fall of 2019, we're really focused on data gathering, field assessment, and a few opportunities for community engagement. So we acquired a lot of different local GIS data sets that would allow us to use in our preliminary desktop analysis to identify these vulnerable shoreline areas. These various data sets include the NOAA sea level rise data set, flood zones, historic shoreline change, SLAM, which is sea level affecting marsh model, looking at marsh migration, critical facilities, and beach profile surveys. In October, we participated in Glenn County's booth at Coast Fest and used a mapping exercise to identify and get input from the public about locations of coastal erosion and king tide flooding. In total, there are 27 areas identified by the public, and we use these to discuss them with local staff, including on our project list. You can see on this picture on the bottom map a couple of points down here in your blue board. But then in the fall, we conducted field visits and field tours with local staff to identify areas of coastal erosion, king tide flooding, flood-prone areas, and then we collected all the data in the GIS database, and then each point on those maps had a specific issue, threats, and then notes on the projects, and we attached also a number of pictures from our field description field visits. I'd like to acknowledge Mr. Garrett Alberson's assistance for the field tour for the city of Brunswick. It was very helpful in identifying areas that are most impacted by these issues, and it was very helpful to have him conduct this field tour. I just wanted to show a couple of photographs and some examples from our field visits with local staff. So on the top left, that's erosion back on the backside of the Palmetto Cemetery. I was informed that about 20 or 30 years ago, you used to be able to drive a vehicle on the left side of those trees, so the shoreline and that channel has been migrating pretty substantially. The bottom left is at T Street in the County Wastewater Plant. In the center is Howard Coffin Park, the erosion at the channel exiting that park. And then on the right-hand side, a couple examples from Jekyll Island with some historical tabby ruins about to fall into the marsh, and then along Ocean Boulevard and St. Simons. Another activity that we participated in was, Captain Jones, Assistant County Manager, and myself were invited to make a presentation before the House and Senate Natural Resources and Environmental Committees at the Environmental Academy. This academy was facilitated by the UGA Carl Vinson Institute of Government, and we received a lot of positive feedback from the attendees at that session, and they responded back in this letter about them finding that the presentation helped them be better informed for the 2020 legislative session.
Hey, how you doing?
And then the third meeting was held January 2020, and it was set up as a workshop so we could gather feedback from the task force. And we had a number of different stations we could take the task force members through to get their feedback. So the first was potential projects, making sure we had all of them properly, that we weren't missing any. The second was looking at all the data sets, helping us determine which were higher priority, as well as missing any. This picture shows a sea level rising area at 3 feet, and the outlines around the channels and colors represent various rates of erosion and depletion on the shoreline. The third station was a preference survey for management practices. In total, there were 14 practices that we reviewed and discussed and received input about issues and opportunities. I'm going to present a few examples of these various management practices in the coming slides, but overall the task force was very interested in more the natural processes such as living shorelines. A couple of living shorelines, top left on Jekyll Island, top right is a site on Ashantilly on Willow Island. The photos at the bottom are a series of constructed dunes that were recently completed on Tybee Island. We also discussed sand dune fencing, as well as stormwater infrastructure. This is on the bottom left, at the riverfront and in St. Mary's. We discussed traditional shoreline stabilization techniques as well, including the seawalls, and then tide control of stormwater systems. The picture on the right shows a tide gate, but also tide collapse are another measure to prevent the high tide from back into the stormwater system, and then another option is riprap. And these are the other management practices that we also discussed and included in our discussion of needs and issues and opportunities. This is included in the table in the report. Our fourth task force meeting was held in February, and during this meeting we reviewed the matrix that GMC created to manage and prioritize all the projects. The matrix was set up as a series of 10 factors, and the factors are rated based on the feedback received at those previous task force meetings. So this was used after we explored the projects, the ranking. The score was used for prioritization, and then for each project we identified also relative cost and proposed solutions and alternatives. So this is a preliminary assessment of these areas and projects. We also included potential partners and project leads, and these were tied back to opportunities for funding as well as property ownership. The three primary factors in the matrix were type of infrastructure, proximity of infrastructure to the shoreline, and sea level rise scenario that would impact that infrastructure. Each of these factors received a maximum of 10 points. Just as an example, those factors receiving the 10 points for type of infrastructure would be critical facilities, major roadways, and historical structures. Proximity to the infrastructure was if it was within 50 feet of the shoreline, and then we went in 50 and 100-foot increments would receive a lower score. Sea level rise 10 points was awarded if it was impacted by 1 foot of sea level rise, and then again, in increments of 1 foot, received a lesser score. Our lower tier factors that had a maximum score of 5 points was still very important. Our vulnerable populations, and we used data set from HUD Exchange for identifying this because it was tied back to eligibility for grant funding and was available at a smaller spatial resolution of the census block data. Ownership of parcel is also another factor, since it is greatly effective for ease of construction and coordination. And we also look at special habitats for wildlife and freshwater wetlands. Also discussed and included flood zones and previous flooding history, whether it was damaged fairly regularly from king tides or if it was just damaged and affected from the recent hurricane events of Matthew and Irma. And lastly, the tier factor was the presence of erosion and weight. And this was to provide more weight of the project was subject to both erosion and flooding. We used the Georgia Southern data set, historical shoreline erosion if the project was located near one of those channels, but if it was not, it was based off of a visual assessment, such as this example on the right with one of those cemetery. Overall, a total of 16 projects were identified within the city limits, and then using the scoring prioritization caused them to be split into roughly thirds, and project prioritization kind of distributed fairly evenly across the city, that there was not one specific area where it was concentrated on either near-term or long-term projects. And just overall, this list of prioritized projects represents completion of an assessment phase, such that now this plan can be used in support of future grant applications for design and permitting or for implementation. And typically, there's going to be larger pots of money available from some of these granting agencies once an assessment is completed and you're pursuing design permitting or implementation grants. And as I mentioned before, grant applications are going to carry a lot more weight when they reference projects identified in an official plan. So that was the primary purpose of this grant and project, to be able to enable that. During this past summer, GMC prepared the final plan and submitted it to the task force in late July, early August. And then we met again at the end of August to review any comments back from the task force on this plan. Get a couple of minor edits over the next week, and then submit out the final plan in early September. And then I'll bring those presentations as a project update to all the commissions and boards on these participating in the task force. So GMC has already started the data gathering for the phase 2 of the project, regarding sea level rise response. And we're planning to have our kickoff meeting with the task force in October. And we look forward to meeting again with you all in the springtime, highlight the recommendations and results from the accumulation of this time. And highlighting specifically the sea level rise response and implementation. Really like to thank you all for allowing me to present this information before you today, and would like to open it up if there's any specific questions.
One question, are you gonna make the same presentation to Glenn County Commission?
What was that, Frank?
Are you gonna make the same presentation to Glenn County Commission?
Yes, I made this presentation to the Czech Law Authority Board yesterday morning, and then the Glenn County Commission had a work session yesterday afternoon.
Oh, you gave it to them already?
Yes.
Okay, all right, I didn't know. Question about this protection plan. We're having some flooding issues, and does this flooding issue have anything to do with the shoreline protection?
A few of the areas that you've had flooding issues at, a lot of those are noted in this plan for areas where they're potentially prone to high tide flooding.
Yes.
And really when we get into the sea level rise response section, we're going to be looking at areas with high tide flooding and are impacted by lack of drainage.
Right.
So there will be a couple more opportunities that we can include if there's other areas that we might have missed in the past in this next phase. And I'll definitely be getting with Arrow to make sure that there's no other areas that we've really been missing. But the first one was focused more on the shoreline segment, so really kind of around the perimeter of the city limits. But if we start to get into effects of sea level rise and looking at issues with high tide flooding, when you have a very high tide event and then storms on top of that, where into the upland areas that start to impact. We'll be taking a closer look at that.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor. Did any of this shoreline information, or did any of the College Park area, was any of that looked at during this particular event?
College Park was not included in the shoreline protection or this first phase of shoreline assessment. I suspect that it will be added and included in the sea level rise response section. It's just that the first phase was looking more at areas with erosion. However, we were including areas vulnerable to flooding from that weren't tied necessarily to specific just to drainage issues. Ones that were more tied back into the river networks.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious because the drainage or the area in College Park is affected directly by the shoreline and marsh area off of 17. So I was, wondering if in fact that would, give them an opportunity to be looked at even in this phase. So.
Okay. No, I'll definitely take note of that and discuss it to include it, to see if it needs to be included within this first phase as we do an update in this next year, or if it is included specifically just in the second phase of the project.
Okay, thank you.
Another question, I know Savannah and Charleston was doing a sea level rise study with some monitoring or whatever. Has anybody take a look at that? Was that included in the sea level rise study that you're doing here? Or was this our grant, our
I think there are some efforts to potentially look into adding some of those monitors in there might have been a grant application recently about looking to install monitors looking at sea level rise in this county. But I think that was still maybe under preparation, or maybe it's been submitted, but there.
Yeah, I don't think that we have decided to do that yet.
Adding sea level rise monitors in Glynn County to be similar to what was in Chatham County.
Well, I was worried about, do we have any data coming from Chatham County, and also anything coming from out of Charleston, that we can use, as we move forward. I was just wondering about some data for that.
Okay. Yeah, we're definitely looking at if there's other areas around that we can utilize the data, because for the sea level rise response portion, we're going to be looking at if there's any available localized data that we can utilize to explore recent sea level rise changes.
Okay, any other questions, commissioners, for Mr. Brown?
Can you hear me?
Yes, okay, go ahead.
Good, I've been trying to ask a question. Just to follow up with that question, how about St. Mary's, Rob? Are they not pretty far along with their shoreline protection? Is St. Mary's something that we could look at to get us caught up with this?
Not aware of their shoreline protection. I know they were interested in trying to do some more work with extending their seawall, but I don't think they've pursued anything further than that.
Can you do some research there?
They have incorporated green infrastructure stormwater management down the riverfront. It's for the smaller storms right now, but if there's a large high tide event or a large storm surge, that green infrastructure isn't going to completely correct or answer everything for that. There still will be issues with the tide and surge. So there needs to be kind of multiple measures in place to address the storm surge plus the stormwater runoff.
So you're saying that St. Mary's is not something that we can look into to perhaps get caught up with this?
No, you definitely can as far as looking.
What I'm asking you to do is to do that.
Okay.
I'm not on what the mayor asked you to do. And St. Mary's, I know, has been on this project a lot longer than Glenn County has. So.
They also completed a sea level rise study as well.
Correct.
Looking toward theirs as we work on this one for Glenn County, but they've done some stormwater management practices recently that we've helped them with that will provide some stormwater storage. They still need a few more things else to address their other parts of their shoreline.
I think we need to get caught up with this thing, and that would be something I would suggest doing. What did the grant? What did this grant cost?
This grant was a 2-year grant for $45,000 each year.
$90,000.
That's correct.
Who served on this committee as your quoting staff for the city of Brunswick?
So for the city of Brunswick, it was the city engineer, Eric Alberson, and Ms. Hannah Myers, interim, and then now assistant city manager.
Right.
And then Ms. McDuffie has now been involved and moved in.
All right, my next question is how much, is there any way to just give us a ballpark of what cost would be involved here to address where you are right now? Just a ballpark, just what are we looking at in dollars?
For addressing all the projects on that list?
Well, however you recommend phasing it in, but yeah, I guess so. Then we like to look at a phase in. I mean, I've not really been involved with this. I've not been told about it. I've not been given updates on it. I live on Riverside Drive. We've got a lot of folks out here, and very frankly, I cannot make heads or tails of any of the charts, any of the graphs, almost anything you've given me to study here. And I represent a lot of people out here and on the Highway 17. As a matter of fact, from L Street North is awfully impacted by what's going on here. And I need more information. And particularly living out here on Riverside Drive, it concerns me that I don't know more about this and we're not further along. It really does. And I think that's what I'm picking up from Mayor Harvey also. I can't speak for him, but I know for myself, I've not gotten any information before I got this to study. And it concerns me greatly. And again, I can't make heads or tails of a lot of it. I don't mind spending my time,
Commissioner Case, let's allow,
when I'm giving information, I need to at least be able to look to see if where I live is included here, and I haven't heard that yet. I don't know.
There are certain projects identified in the Riverside Drive area, being the Riverside Drive Causeway, and then a couple of areas we have to note as more of a neighborhood or larger scale in terms of there being multiple areas or multiple homes and properties affected, not necessarily just identifying individual projects, but larger kind of general areas that need focus. And one of those projects was just a general Riverside Drive neighborhood.
Yes, sir. Well, as far as I know, correct me if I am wrong, please, but we've got a causeway out here that both sides of the causeway are minimal right now. We're in harm's way out here. And we need, as well as, it's like they're mentioning College Park. I mean, we've got a couple of areas here. And College Park, the same way, I represent them. And we've got serious problems. But again, out here, we're stuck out here in the marsh, and we could be able to, we could be stuck in here if we have another Irma. It's that bad. I see it every day. You don't even have enough room on the side of the road getting out here to run a skag lawnmower. I mean, it's already that much, and that impact with erosion already. I mean, it's been going on. I brought it to the attention of folks, and I think I've done what I can, but we need to do more here. We need to do more, like Commissioner Williams said, and the mayor in College Park. Soon, S-O-O-N, soon.
The thing is that this type of project and plan identifies those vulnerable areas so then they can use for the larger grants for implementation and design. So with St. Mary's, they did their sea level rise study, and then they pursued another grant from Georgia EPD that they referenced that sea level rise study and got $500,000 to enhance some of their stormwater infrastructure in the downtown. So right now we're doing the assessment phase, where the assessment phase kind of grants are a smaller value, but then once you have assessment and prioritize areas, then you can pursue larger grant amounts if you're pursuing in that manner versus pursuing with your own funds. You can kind of pick whatever you want to do, but by pursuing grants, you have to kind of go through that process of an assessment phase first, and then pursuing then the design implementation ones.
So who is doing the priority here? Who is prioritizing the project? And where would College Park and where would Riverside Drive be? Because like Commissioner Williams says, that water can't get out of College Park if it's got encumbrance on the east side of Highway 17. You know, there's just no way. And again, I've got a problem out here, and so do all these people. If we don't get something going pretty quick, I mean, we could lose our ingress and egress. I mean, just be caught out here tonight and not be able to leave in the morning. So
I believe that the Riverside Drive Causeway was identified in a near-term priority, so the highest priority level, but then the neighborhood section as a whole was in the intermediate. I'd have to go back and reference and look at that map again, but that was what I recall from preparing the plan and the presentations.
well, who's supposed to let folks know what's going on? I mean, I appreciate what you're doing here so much, but there just seems to be so much that hasn't been done, and particularly in communication.
That's what I was about to ask, Commissioner Payson. We're only as good as the information that's provided to us. And so we need to have that information passed along to us. So when our constituents come and ask us about this stuff, we can give them educated information and not just pull it out the sky. And so they need to know, and we need to know, so that even in our planning and in our discussions, we'll know how we need to move forward in prioritizing different areas, College Park, Riverside Drive, all of those areas that are so vulnerable and susceptible to these flooding issues and have been for so many years.
I literally feared for my life out here last night, because I know I have been working on that causeway out there for as long as I've been on the city commission. And advise folks that we've got a serious problem out here. It's got to be addressed. And last night, I'm going to tell you what, you would not believe the waterfall out here. It was unreal, but it was everywhere. So I don't want to minimize any other area. I am here to maximize us getting some information here and to maximize us getting on with getting this stuff done. And that's where we need to go. I mean, this stuff needs to be expedited critically.
I was really hoping that we would have been able to get this presentation back in March at that planned session, but that day before it just had gotten canceled due to COVID, and then the grant had gotten to get extended, and we weren't able to meet and give you an update earlier than now.
Let me reinforce that I was not by myself last night, but I feared for myself because other people know about the situation out here also. And I'm sure that they were in the same boat. You know, it just came down in buckets out here, but it was all over Brunswick. Again, I do not want to minimize. My son was flooded out on Union Street last night. His house was underwater underneath it. His car had water in it. His air conditioning units were covered with water. We had, again, problems, although we have got to get on this thing. Another question before I get off of this thing. Grants are not going to be the answer to me. Brunswick and Glenn County, St. Simon's, Jacob have all got to be addressed. I mean, we have got to get ourselves protected from high water, from hurricanes. It's just got to be expedited. How are we going to do that? Are you addressing that with this situation?
We identified different funding opportunities. Grants are one of them. Others are potentially pursuing with SPLOST monies.
Well, I did everything I could to try to get some money in our SPLOST list to start just this very thing, and I don't believe there's a first dime in there in our list. And so I hope the folks are listening to me here, and they'll get behind this thing and expedite it, and I've asked for the county to please reconsider the SPLOST. And this is why. This is exactly why. This is critical. It really is. The west coast of Florida, Louisiana, North, their impact. We've been lucky right now. This could all be us right now. We're sitting right here with our boots in the mud. Literally. No pun intended. And we cannot depend on grants to do this. My estimation is, and I hope that folks will agree with me, that SPLOST is the best way to do this and get it moving forward and get started with it. So, again, I wasn't even aware of when the meetings are. I have had no input here whatsoever. None.
Thank you, Commissioner Casey. Thank you, Commissioner Harris, for your comment. Commissioner Williams also. Mr. Brown, thank you for making this presentation. As you can see, we are very much concerned about the Shoreline Protection Act and also the plan that we're putting together. We're also concerned about the sea level rise as well. We understand that you have identified things, but we still want to see things done, implementation of those solutions to our issues, our area. I know our assistant city manager, our city engineer, and our city manager all on board with putting this plan together. Now I think they will provide a more detailed briefing to us at a later date. But again, thank you for this presentation. And any other commission you have anything else to say before I move on?
I'd like to know when the pictures out at Palmetto Cemetery were taken at Omaha Canal, if you don't mind. Do you have any idea of that?
The photo they took it last fall in October.
Well, it doesn't look like that today. You should go out there and take a look at it, Ross. You really should.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I went around to a few areas around the county this morning after the storms and high tides last night and took a few photos just to see how they've changed since I did last year tour and visits for the project.
That's an important part of the city of Brunswick. Got to please revisit it. It doesn't look like it does on this picture. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brown. Thank you, commissioners, for your comments. Let's move right along as we go through our meeting. Item number 3 is consider approval of September 2nd, 2020 regular scheduled meeting minutes. That was in our packet.
Approve the minutes.
Okay.
Second.
Motion second for approval of September 2nd, 2020 minutes. Any further discussion or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Seems like the ayes have it. Okay, that motion carries. Item number 4, consider approval of resolution number 2020-17, building permit schedule fees. This was brought to us before. We had some comments about it, and now it's being brought before us again. I believe, Mr. Hunter, are you here to present this again?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay.
And I did not present, I have not presented this to the city commission. I believe you're at the finance committee meeting last week.
Oh, okay.
Where I presented.
Okay.
Sorry. I'm not going to go through word by word on the information that I provided for you ahead of time. But in short, in 2018, we last updated our building permit fee schedule, both with the valuation table from the International Code Council, but also changed our per $1,000 value fee rates. After those changes, we started getting some occasional complaints about the cost of our building permits, and in particular for larger projects that were either over 15,000 square feet in size, or projects that were valued over $250,000. And as we dove into it, what we found was that through the changes that we had made, we had, in certain situations, created building permit fees that far exceeded the general area in other municipalities. In looking at this, we looked at Glenn County's fee structure, St. Mary's fee structure, and Savannah's fee structure, and found, if you look at the table on the first page of the memo, you'll see that we had our old fee structure was kind of in the middle. It was a little, depending on the project, it was either right around Glenn County's fee schedule or a little bit less. St. Mary's and Savannah were higher. Under the fee schedule change in 2018, in some cases, we actually were higher, considerably higher than Savannah in our building permit fees. So as we examined this, we felt like it was a fairly limited issue, but it was one that would have potential substantial impact on larger projects in the city and a number of the major building renovation and building expansion projects. So based on all this information, we are recommending 3 changes to our building permit fee structure. The first would be that we begin updating our valuation table annually and base it on the February release of the ICC valuation data. This will keep us current annually on building costs, average building costs, and since it's updated every year, it would adjust for inflation or anything like that, which would mean that we have to adjust our rates less often. The second recommendation was changing the value charges to $8 per $1,000 in value for projects under $250,000 with a minimum permit fee of $60, and to $2,500 plus $4 for every $1,000 of value over $250,000. Again, this is one of the areas that major projects were seeing the escalation of fees in. The third recommendation is that prior to 2018, we had had a renovation fee schedule. So if you had an existing building and you were doing renovations on it, you had a different fee structure than somebody who was doing new construction from scratch. That was omitted in the updated 2018. So our recommendation is to put back in a renovation fee schedule of $8 per $1,000 of contracted costs below $250,000 with a permit minimum of $60, and that projects that are greater than $250,000 would follow the new construction fee structure. Based on those changes, you can see what it would do to our permit fee structure with the second table on table 2. You'll see that it does reduce those in a couple of cases, an example, by about half, which in these projects I think would have been a very good thing. The good news is that we don't anticipate this having a major impact on our budget, with it only impacting based on the research of our permits over the last 2 years. These changes would impact 5 to 6 projects annually out of an average of 119 permits. In review of our FY20 projects, this would have reduced our permitting fees by $37,000 in what was collected over the course of the year. You'll see that we collected a fairly large amount of permit fees this past year of $347,000. A lot of that's attributed to a number of large projects taking place. One's a major renovation planned for Target. Also a couple of, also the Brunswick Commons apartment complex behind Cypress and Bill. Those are large projects with almost $100,000 permit fees at peaks. So we don't get those along every year, so we don't budget for that high of a value. And we feel confident that we'll still be able to hit our budget target of $110,000 for FY 2001. The information was reviewed at the August 25th Finance Committee meeting, and the resolution and all the information has been reviewed by staff, the city attorney, and the city manager. That's pretty brief. I tried to cover a lot of ground in summary, but I'm happy to answer any particular questions that you've got about these proposed changes.
Any questions for Mr. Hunter?
Mr. Hunter, I have one question, and I don't know if you can answer this, if you had any time to maybe research this, but can you tell us approximately how many projects were lost because of our fees, or we lost any projects because of our fees being set where they were?
We did not lose any projects. We had some unhappy campers. I've heard quite a bit about it just in my few months as director, but I know it was an issue that had come up last summer, summer 2019, and got us to start researching and try to figure out what the issue was.
And if I may, Commissioner Williams, part of it was just trying to make sure that we could justify what our fees were and we could explain them, because when you have a contractor and you're trying to charge a fee and you can't even explain it yourself, then that becomes a problem. And I think some of that is what was problematic with it.
Okay, I agree with that. I was just wondering if we lost any projects, any major projects, because of the fees that we were charging or are charging, and
Well, I'll tell you one thing that it has done is that a number of our contractors, when they would get the initial fee, Sometimes contractors can be kind of a little loose with the information that they provide, that we then use to calculate permit fees. There were a number of them that we ended up sitting down with because we agreed that the fees seemed to be really out of line with what we would anticipate being a normal fee. We would sit down and fine tune their actual applications so we got as accurate information about what they were doing and how much it would cost. And in multiple instances, we spent hours with contractors over 2 or 3 meetings to get it dialed in so that it was a little bit more palatable for them.
Okay. That was
The planning, folks weigh in on this, John, did they take a look at it?
The Planning and Appeals Commission?
Yes.
No, sir.
They didn't have an option?
No, none of these fees deal with the Planning Commission at all.
Well, they may have had some input, or some thought, I don't know, I think I would have about it. But, how does this stack up with the county?
The changes will still keep us, in some cases, a little bit more expensive than the county. In some cases, will be in line. Unfortunately,
To me, and I tell you, I remember when the stormwater sewer decided that they would go up on their tap fees, and they really and truly had to go back and redo everything. I don't want to do this with this thing. I want to be sure we adopt it. That it is something that we're growing now, and we sure don't want to be construed as being anti-growth, and we certainly don't want to be construed as being mercenary. So
exactly, and that's exactly why when Ms. McDuffie came on board, this was actually one of the first things that she and I talked about because it was something we had identified as being a problem, and it could be interpreted exactly the way that you're saying, that basically we're jacking rates to squeeze things out of development locally, and we didn't want that.
So you have no concerns that we will be looked at in anything like, or that our charges are excessive?
Not with this proposed structure. That's why we're here, because I'm concerned that the fees that we have currently are.
Okay.
Yes, that's exactly what we're guarding against. We want to make sure that with the adjustment that we'll make on an annual basis, that our fees will stay in line with what they should be.
Great, thank you.
Can I hear from the Finance Committee, what do you guys have to say about this?
I was just about to chime in, just man, we looked at this and, from what we've evaluated, what we saw, that there's only going to be, on average, about $37,000, I think it was, annually that we received from the fees that we now have, which would keep us in line, would keep us in budget, would keep us moving forward, and I think that it would cause other contractors to speak well of us to other contractors so that other businesses and other construction may take place in the city of Brunswick. So that's our main goal, is to make sure that we're moving the city of Brunswick forward.
Absolutely.
I've
got one other question. On your chart, and I wish y'all would put page numbers on this stuff, but here's a chart in here that says demolition interior, demolition exterior. Could there be anything here that talks about historical demolition? We've had problems with historical demolition.
So from a fee structure standpoint, I don't think so. Obviously, we do have the demolition delay ordinance that we instituted a couple of years ago that at least provides another opportunity for review of the demolition of potentially historic properties outside of the Old Town Historic District. I don't know that, I've never seen anywhere that charges a different demolition fee for historic properties. That's something I could examine, but,
Because I know you spent a lot of time, and before you, a lot of time was spent, go back to, the old house, the oldest house in Brunswick on G Street, and I've just seen something recently about a historical project on Wolf Street. Is that not taking you more time? I mean, it's just time to think about it. I'm not saying it's worth holding this up. I'm asking the question if I don't see where we look into it.
we can look into that. I've never had a problem looking into those things. It does take a little. It does take a little bit more time dealing with a property that we deem as being needing to go through the demolition delay process. So yeah, we can look at that and see if there's reason to do that.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
That's all I've got.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Casey. Commissioners, this has been approved through the Finance Committee. Mr. Casey brought up something that Mr. Hunter said he would take in consideration, and hopefully maybe on the next resolution, add an amendment if need be, after you take a look at that. But I don't think we need to hold this up.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, we definitely don't need to hold it up.
Yes, okay, so with that being said, Commissioners, I think I need a motion for approval.
May I like to offer a motion to approve the
Second.
building permit schedule fees as presented?
Thank you for that motion and that second for approval of the resolution 2020-17 building permit schedule fees. Are there any further comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, that same right? It appears the ayes have it. Thank you, Commissioner. That motion carries unanimously. Okay, we are at our last item on our agenda. The city attorney item, consider approval of resolution number 2020-16 relating to House Bill 1203, arrest by private person. I believe this is called a citizen's arrest bill. City attorney, Mr. Corey, are you presenting?
Yes, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, yes.
Okay, great. This resolution you have before you is pretty short and sweet, but I wanted to give some background information on it. In June of this year, June 2020, House Bill 1203 was introduced by Representative Gilliard. It's also co-sponsored by Don Hogan, one of our local delegates. And in essence, what it does is it repeals the full chapter of what is commonly known as citizen's arrest in the state of Georgia. It also amends certain portions of the law that would, allow or otherwise cite to that law. And as briefly and succinct as I can state it, citizen's arrest is the ability of a private person to arrest somebody who has committed an offense within their presence or within their immediate knowledge, and they have to have reasonable probable cause to arrest that person. The bill was introduced again in June 2020. It went forward, it was read for the first and second time on June 17th and then June 18th in the House. It's out of the House Judiciary Non-Civil Committee, but at the moment it did not make it any further in the 2020 legislative session. So it's kind of just standing and waiting to see whether progress is made in the next call session. So what the resolution you have before you essentially does is just supports the passage of that bill to the effect of how it's written.
So Brian, will there still be a citizen's arrest law in the state of Georgia if we approve this, or will there not?
No, this calls for the full repeal of what's citizens arrest is known as Article 4, Chapter 4, Title 17. Related to the arrest by private persons will be repealed in its entirety. And then what it would essentially go on to do is remove any citations of that citizens arrest law from other criminal code sections that, sort of peripherally discuss how people are to be brought in, how people are arrested, what the process is after that.
But somebody comes in my domicile here, what rights do I have?
I would reserve to provide advice on that. I mean, it's somewhat of a loaded question to me, but
No, we need to know before we adopt this thing. And what's going to happen when I'm out on Highway 17 and somebody seriously impairs my automobile through an accident? They decide they want to leave, but I'm standing there with them. I can't detain them. These are questions that need to be answered. I don't know.
I think you can detain them. I think that's part of something else, not necessarily the citizen arrest law here. It's already inherent in your right to defend yourself, Mr. Cason, but this bill here is trying to eradicate something that was put in place years and years ago that really has become outdated.
And to answer the question as best I can, as shortly as I can would be to call the police, especially if there's an accident that took place regarding the vehicle. I think that would be the appropriate measure, or if somebody's been attempting to break in your house, to call the police first and foremost.
Yeah, I don't think you need to take the law in your hands, sir.
Well, I don't know. There was a time when I probably took my cab with the day. I did it for everybody. And I do know that you need every right in this world to protect your property.
I agree with that.
And I don't want to diminish that.
I don't think this is talking about protection of property. This is talking about arresting someone for an action that you saw them do. And listen,
I don't know.
Listen.
I think those are things that are accounted for in this bill. We all know what this refers to, so I'm not going to discuss it anymore because we all know what it refers to. Vigilantes, and that's the premise of all of this stuff. So we know that there's still certain inalienable rights that we still have as Americans and we have as citizens with the rights of our properties. But you don't have the right to hunt somebody down. That's not your right.
That's part of, I think, what the bill is conveying. I mean, even in the event, just for clarification, that you were to effect a citizen's arrest on somebody, the code sections that are currently in place would require you to immediately contact the authorities and try to get them into the hands of a peace officer. The United States shall, without unnecessary delay, take the person arrested before a judicial officer or deliver the person in all effects removed from him to a peace officer. I mean, that's, I think that there's the way the citizen arrest law is written and what this bill is, or what this bill in this resolution is stating is that, there seems to be a step allowed by the law in between you getting into an arrest, or getting into an accident with somebody, calling the police taking that person into proper custody. As written, the law will allow you at that point in time, if the person was attempting to flee and they had committed a crime in your presence, to arrest them, but you still, in order to comply with the law, need to present them immediately or as soon as humanly possible to either the judicial officer, meaning you'd have to take them to the courthouse yourself and present them before a magistrate, or you'd have to take them to a law enforcement agent or agency and present them to that law enforcement agent.
Okay, thank you.
Also, Commissioners, Representative Gilliard would like to hold a press conference to approve this for this Friday or either maybe following Monday to let you know, because something happened in our community and And we need to stand with this, as everyone has said. And Commissioner Williams, I didn't give you a chance to finish your statement. You want to finish up?
Well, I was just basically saying that, what this is a law that gives us, that's currently on the books, that gives you the ability to detain someone that is now being taken off, saying that you cannot detain an individual because you're not law enforcement. As a law enforcement officer, every law enforcement officer, when they arrest you, they have to read you your Miranda warnings. If you do not know the Miranda warnings, you have no ability to arrest. And even if you know, if you're not a sworn peace officer, you have no ability to arrest anyone. That's all this is saying.
Okay. But anyhow, we will. I will get back with Representative Gilliard and also Representative Don Hogan, who is, as the attorney said, is a co-sponsor of this bill. We as a community here in Brunswick, it would be great if we get on board with this as well, because something happened in our community that necessitates us moving forward with this.
Mr. Mayor, I agree with the resolution, but I don't agree with the press conference, because this still has to go back in January. So if a press conference is going to be done, it needs to be done when this thing is totally complete and approved. Right now, for me, we're in my seat. We're just saying that we support this going forward, because this has not been completed. This process has not been completed. So
I'm in no agreement with that.
Well, I think Commissioner Case and Commissioner Harris, I think that's what Representative Gilliard is trying to do, to drum up enough to get people to say who's on board. I don't think he's trying to say we didn't want a victory or anything. But I do yield to your thoughts.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to offer a motion to approve resolution number 2020-16 relating to House Bill 1203, arrest by private persons.
second.
There's been motion and second for approval of resolution 2020-16, arrest by private person. Are there any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Anyone opposed? No opposed. It seems the ayes have it. Okay, that motion carried unanimously. Thank you. That motion is approved. Okay, Commissioners, we have come to the end of our regular printed agenda. Is there any need for executive session? I believe there is.
I believe so. I believe it's for real estate.
Yes, also for personnel too. So I entertain a motion to go into executive session, please.
Mr. Mayor, I offer a motion to enter executive session for real estate and personnel.
Second.
Motion second for the into executive session for real estate personnel. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? See the ayes have it. Okay, we will adjourn our meeting temporarily here and go into executive session. Afterwards, we'll come back and officially adjourn our regular scheduled meeting. So, we shall go into executive session. I'll see you on the other side, Commissioners.